Welcome to Bodies by Tischa Global TV. This is episode number 3. Thank you for everyone who is coming along and who has been along since episode 1. I hope that I have a really encouraging message for you today. I always like to share a bit of my life and things that I might be going through in hopes to encourage other people. And today's episode, I hope that will be something that will encourage many of you that are out there today that are feeling a little lonely or isolated, maybe in a situation that you might be going through in your life. I want to get started on the topic for today. And again, I want to talk about something very personal that's going on in my life right now, currently going on in my life, and how I am managing through it. And so I wanted to talk about being lonely and friendship in that loneliness and reaching out. And so today's topic is the lie that we kind of tell ourselves, and as far as being strong, like, you got to be strong in order to be if you're going through something, you're not weak, you're strong, you can make it through it. And so today's topic is touching on that. And so today it's going to be a little bit, like I said, a little different conversation than it normally is. And normally we talk about fitness and health and motivation and discipline and transforming your life of that nature. But today I want to talk to you about something that I believe is important, and building also physical strength. But other than building physical strength, but I want to talk to you about friendship, and not the kind of friendship that where people show up when only things are good happening in your life. But I'm talking about the kind of friendship that helps to carry you through the storms of life, that type of friendship. And so over the past several months, I've been going through quite, I want to say, a very, very turbulent season. And I'm not talking about because it's been hot this summer, but a turbulent season within my own life. And probably one of the hardest seasons that I've had to be going through. And I'm 55 years old, and I've been through quite a bit in my life. But lately, my business here at the studio has been quite slow, almost like a drip, drip slow. And it's caused quite a bit of a struggle financially for me to be able to keep up with things. Personal, a close family member of mine is going through some legal issues. And as a close member, I feel like my hands are kind of tied, that I can't do something for that person in my life. And on top of all of that, a dear friend that I consider to be a very, very dear friend of 15 years, I had to terminate a friendship that I had for over a decade. I said over 15 years I had a friend, and I had to end that friendship. And I'm not going to go into particulars, but it felt definitely like a death to me, and still mourning the loss of that friendship. And when several difficult things happen at the same time, it has a way of feeling extremely heavy, and things seem to be darker than than they really are. Or even if things are dark, when you're going through a situation, or many situations, when it seems like it's raining, it's pouring, it just seems like everything is, you see everything from in a negative lens, I would say. And I would have to say that were many days that, even recently, that I felt like my world was just like crashing down around me, where I felt scared and overwhelmed. And to be honest, I felt really, 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 really lonely. And the interesting thing is that I realized that some of the hardest battles that we go through in our life is not so much the things that are going on around us, but the battle that goes on in your head. And that little voice that starts to whisper to you in your head and says, nobody cares about you, and that you're going through this all alone, and you got to figure this out all by yourself. And don't say anything about what you're going through. Don't bother anybody, because everybody else has their own problems to deal with. You don't want to bother people. And that voice can become increasingly louder and louder and louder, and incredibly convincing. to if you manage to listen to it long enough, and sometimes even devastatingly irreversible as far as you keep going down that dark rabbit hole of feeling isolated. And then we live in a world right now where social media being so isolating. Social media was supposed to be something that brought us together, brings us together, but in fact it has done the opposite and has isolated quite a bit of us. Where back in the day, I remember you used to pick up a phone and used to go over your friend's house and see how they were doing, and we don't quite do that anymore, or not as much as we used to. And everyone is in their own little bubble and doing their own thing, and we fail to check on the people that we say that we care about. And I don't know, I found myself, even I was in that situation where I had lost a friend here in Berlin, where she unalived herself. And I not that sometimes I feel like I don't know if I would have picked up the phone, if it would have made a difference. But I often wonder, had I picked up the phone and say, hey, I'm just checking on you. Hey, why don't you come over for lunch or something like that? I wonder if it would have made a difference in her life. And I only say that because what I have myself been going through personally here, because I live by myself, and quite often sometimes I don't get out of the house for sometimes weeks at a time. And I find myself like one situation after the other, after the other, after the other. And I just was like, just breathe. You can do this. You've been through hard things before. You can do this. But even the strongest, sometimes people look at me and say, oh, you're strong. You got this. You can handle this. No, no problem. You get through this. But behind the scenes, I was really, 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 really struggling. And I always believed that I could handle whatever life threw at me. I've been through a lot of stuff in my life, and I've always thought like I can handle it. I can handle it. And I've always wore the, that badge I always wore being strong, like a badge of honor. And I convinced myself that asking for help meant that I wasn't strong enough. If I asked for help to make myself that vulnerable, I was like, no, I'm not going to do that, because that means that I'm not strong. And I know I'm strong. I don't need any help. But this season, what I'm going through right now, oh, this season has humbled me. It has humbled me quite a bit. It's been going on, I want to say, since probably the turn of the year, since the business has like kind of slowed down. I was waiting for that big overflow of people to come in to the studio for the New Year's resolution, and that didn't happen. And it's like a domino effect where one thing happens after another, where you're almost afraid to ask what next, what could happen next. I'm almost afraid. I don't even want to ask, because so much has happened already to me. And I want to have to say, like, this season really, really, really humbled me, in the sense that, like, wow, I realized something that I hadn't really fully realized before. And that strength isn't always about carrying every burden by yourself. And because I was doing it, and people come into my studio all the time, and it's not that I'm not around people. People come here to train all the time, but I always feel like, they're not coming here to hear my problems. They're coming here to train, and they're not. I don't want to dump on them, and no, I don't want to be that person, to be what they call a Debbie Downer, and making everyone else mood down. And I don't want to scare people away from coming to the studio. I'll just keep it to myself. I'll work it out. I'll figure it out somehow. But I realized that in this situation, that what I realize is that it's not meant. You're not meant to carry things alone by yourself. And sometimes, strength is having the courage to let someone not so much fix the problems for you, but be willing to sit beside you while you work things out. And I had to learn to be vulnerable in the state of which I am still in, just to be vulnerable and to be able to open up to people and say, you know what, I just need someone to talk to. or maybe even a shoulder to cry on. Not that, I'm looking for the people to fix my problems or to do anything along those natures, because quite honestly, nobody can, make my business problems go away, or, nobody can help me to make, the decisions that I have to make, whatever those may be in my life. These are things that I'm not looking for when I open up, but I just needed a listening ear, and someone to sit down and say, you know what, let me just not even say anything, just listen. Sometimes the on the other side, when you open up to people, sometimes people think that, oh man, I have to have an answer for this person, but that's not always the case. It's not always that you're looking for someone to solve your problems, but you just need a listening ear, and not always looking for someone to have a solution for you. And sometimes we just need someone that is willing to sit beside us while we figure things out, and have a shoulder to cry on, or just have someone just hold your hand or put their arm around you and be like, give you a hug. I can't tell you, this weekend has been like really life changing for me, because I was in a dark place. Like, I was really going down that rabbit hole of darkness. And not to say that I would have unalived myself. I don't think that I would want to entertain those thoughts. But it definitely wasn't in a good place. And it took me being vulnerable for a second, and really opening up to some of the members that come through my studio and say, you know what, I just need someone to talk to. I just, things are not going well in my life, and I'm not looking for anybody to change anything, but I just need someone to talk to. And like I said, sometimes it's just, simply having someone there that just totally made the difference in my life. And a few of the members texted me, and a few of them called, and one of the members that did call, we were having a conversation, and it made me laugh, because in the conversation he was saying, I'm crying and boohooing about everything that I'm going through, and in the middle of the conversation he was like, sometimes, lately I've been feeling pretty lonely too. And in the midst of my tears, boohoo, and I'm like laughing in the midst of my tears, and I'm like, really? You're feeling lonely too? And why is that? Why are we both sitting here, both feeling, lonely? Why don't we both do something about that? So we both committed and made a commitment to each other that we were going to check in on one another, and make sure that each other was okay. And made a promise that we would go out to dinner every now and then, and not to say that we're going to be in each other's face all the time, but just to know that somebody's in your corner. And did any of them solve any of my financial problems when they called and checked on me? No. Did any of them solve any of my make any of my issues that are here to make them disappear? None of that happened. But what did happen, the most important thing that did happen, I have to say, is that small gesture of reaching out and saying, I'm just checking on you to see if you're okay, made the difference. And it quieted the voice that kept telling me that nobody gives a fuck about you. It quieted that voice. And that made the biggest difference in my life, over the weekend, because I was really, 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 really going through. And sometimes when you come online, you want to be cheery and you want to act like everything is a-okay. But one of the reasons why I started to do the lives again, is because I want to try to be as authentic as I can to you. And part of that is coming to you before you, and sometimes everything is not okay, and then letting you know that everything is not okay, and letting you know that I'm struggling at the moment, and I'm okay right now. I haven't fixed any of the issues, but I'm working on it. But this weekend make a huge difference, and if those people are watching today, I want to thank you. You know who you are, And I want to thank you for reaching out and picking up the phone and calling me and picking up the phone and texting me and saying, just hang in there. We all go through hard times, but just like seasons changes, the seasons also change in your life as well. And just hang in there. And if there's anything that I can do for you, I'm here for you. And the friend that took me out to dinner and we would just shoot the bull. And it felt really, really good. And like I said, it wasn't that I was looking for anyone to solve any of my problems, but that small gesture really, really just quieted that voice that was in my head that made me feel like I was by myself because I live as an expat over here and my family is, in the States and my kids, it's not that my kids or that we don't love each other, not at all, just the opposite, but my kids are very busy in their lives and they're raising their children and my daughters are going to school and my son is raising his family and everyone is busy doing their thing and they do call me when they do get a chance, but here living here you have people that you come in contact with, you have um sometimes friends, that come in and out of your life, especially here in Berlin where you have so many people that are transient. And so you meet someone that you kind of get close with for a minute and then poof, they're out of your life. And I'm at that stage right now where I really don't have a lot of people in my life, but this weekend proved to me that, the people that did reach out proved to me that, what, you're not alone in this. And you don't have to walk alone in this. And it made me very, very, very grateful to know that, just to have that information. And the greatest gift that I could say is just simply having their presence, in my life. And I'm trying not to get emotional here because like I just been really, really, it's been really tough to try to figure things out, and you don't know how you're going to flip it around. It meant a lot to me to have the individuals reach out to me. And so I said, we promised one another that we're going to be here and to bring it all back around to talk about friendship. You know, when we're talking about friendship, it's not something that, friendship is not something that happens automatically. It's not something that it's just like when you go to, it's just like our health when you're working out and you go to the gym, you don't go to the gym just one time and boom, you're strong. You have to continually grow and nurture that and work on it and build yourself up. And that's just the same thing. Building a nurturing friendship is the same thing. And a relationship is the same thing. You have to work on it. You have to promise to check on each other and pick up the phone and ask the person, hey, I'm just checking on you. Just trying to see how you're doing. You know what I mean? Let's come on by and I'm going out for a walk today. How about you join me? How are you? Really? It means a big deal, and it's such a small thing that we can do for one another. It's so small, but it could have such a big, huge significance in someone else's life. And I can't like it did for me this weekend. It was just someone reaching out to me and just like, I'm just checking on you to see how you're doing. And like I said, meaningful relationships and friendships, they don't just happen. You have to nurture them and water them and tend to them and they grow. But many of us in these bubbles, we're so isolated that we forget we forget to do that, and we become so afraid to let our guard down and be vulnerable enough to reach out side of our bubble and say, hey, how you doing today? We forget to do that. And so friendship, you know like I said, friendship works the same way. You got to nurture it. You have to water it. You have to check on your friends, pick up the phone and make sure that they're okay. Send a text, and ask people, how's that situation you told me about? I don't have the answer, but I'm just checking to see how you're doing where you are in that, and in that walk in your life. So, excuse me, I'm trying my best not to get too emotional, and I'm trying not to get too personal neither. But I want to inspire you as well, and encourage you to also like don't get into that place where you're going through something in life and you feel like I don't have anybody to turn to. and that nobody's in your corner, because there's always someone there that's willing to help if you're willing to reach out. But you got to be willing to reach out. You got to be willing to be vulnerable enough to do so. I like I said, I mentioned my friend, and I wish that I would have done that for her. I wish that I would have reached out, because what I'm feeling right now, she must have been feeling 10 times that in order to be able to do what she did. And I would never, ever, ever want to see someone that I feel is close to me in my life to have to make that decision that they think that no one else is in their life, that they would have to unalive themselves, because that's so irreversible that you can't come back from that, and sometimes people are not going to reach out. So you got to be that one. You got to be that one. If you haven't heard from somebody in a while, if you haven't heard from a friend that you used to talk to in a while, and say, damn, I haven't heard from so and so. Let me just shoot that person a text and see what they're doing. You'd be surprised. You will be surprised what that can do for a person. For a long time, I thought that I had to be the lone wolf. I often say that to people. I'm a lone wolf. I travel through life by myself. I'm independent. I don't need anybody to do anything, you know. And the funny thing is that I thought about that, but being a lone wolf, even lone wolves, they travel in packs. They don't even travel by themselves in life. They even travel together, in order to be able to survive. And so my question to myself is, what makes me think that, that I'm any different? That, I don't need anyone, in my life to be able to survive. And so we all need that. We all need someone to be in our life, not so much to rescue us or to fix our problems, but we all need someone to remind us that, we're not walking this journey by ourselves. And so, on that note, I would want to challenge you. You know what I mean? I want to challenge everyone who's watching here today, that to think of one person, that maybe, you haven't seen in a while, you haven't heard from in a while, that you haven't talked to in a bit, someone that's been on your mind. I want you to pick up the phone, and because you don't know what battles that person might be going through. You don't know what anybody, the season that they may be going through in their life. But what I want you to do is not wait for them to reach out, because they may not do that. And so you may have to make the first move. You might have to send the first text or make the first phone call or invite them to lunch, and say, hey, come on over and let's have a talk. I'm going out for a walk today. Come join me. And you have absolutely no idea of how that simple act of kindness, what that can mean to someone. And if you are the one that's lonely, and if you are the one that's struggling today, like I have been, I'm definitely in a better place today than I was, I want to say, even this past weekend. But if you are the one that's struggling and needs someone, just hear me out. You do not, and I repeat again, you do not have to do this alone. Reach out. Be vulnerable enough to reach out, because reaching out isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign and a badge of courage, because one of the hardest things that I think is hard, one of the hardest things to do is to admit that you're not okay. And I'm trying to let you know that it's okay to say that you're not okay. And it's okay to let to be vulnerable enough to reach out and tell someone that, because oftentimes healing starts with conversation, not a solution, not someone fixing all of your problems, but just a conversation, and so in this season in my life, it's taught me quite a deal. It's quite a bit. And, asking for support, it's definitely taught me that it's not a sign of weakness, but it reminds me that I am human. People see me as some super strong person, some superhero, but you know what? I'm just human, just like anyone else. And I have my ups and downs, and sometimes, like I said, I get scared when life gets really, really choppy, and I'm not sure how to fix situations. And I'm here to tell you, if you're also struggling like that, or if you know someone, be the first one to reach out to them. And if it's you, don't be afraid to reach out, because, success means very little if you don't have anyone to celebrate with. And money's going to come and money's going to go. And just like my business and careers, they're going to go up, and careers and businesses is going to go down. And life is always going to throw storms, at every one of us. That's all part of making our character and making us stronger. But meaningful relationships, if you're able to be able to reach out and to nurture that from the people that are around you. Come outside of your bubble, because I know, especially with social media, man, many of us are sitting home very lonely and are afraid to reach out to others. But I'm telling you, don't be afraid to do that, because this weekend taught me a whole lot. And again, for if those people are watching today, thank you. Thank you for just picking up the phone, because you didn't have to do that. Thank you for inviting me to dinner, because you didn't have to do that. But I'm telling you right now, that small gesture in you doing that, wow, that took me out of a dark, dark, dark place. Because like on the weekends, when the studio is nobody's here at the studio, I'm home and I'm here by myself. And the voice in my head is getting louder and louder and louder. And it was telling me nobody cares and you're all alone. And, you got to do this all by yourself. And, if nobody's going to even notice if you're not even here, not in an unalive sense, but like if I have to pack up and go or something like that, nobody's even going to miss you. And I had to have a few members told me that how much I mean to them. And that meant a lot to me, to know that I mean something to someone, and that people look forward to me being a part of their life. That meant something to me. And so I want to encourage you that you don't have to be that lone wolf. You don't have to walk through life and think that you have to do it all by yourself. You don't have to do that. Oops, I'm falling. So I just want to leave you with one more thought before I close things off. Here at BBT, that's one of the main things that I try to build here at the studio. I try to build not just strong people. Of course, I do that, but when I do the meet and greets and when I have other events and stuff like that here, I try to build not only strong bodies, but I try to build strong minds and also strong communities, because I realize that, you know, together being, if we're strong together, then we can help one another out when we see each other, and we see that one is in need. You're not just exercising next to someone that you don't know. But I try to build a strong community here, and the support that each and every one of you give, either by coming to Global TV, BBT Global TV, and you're supporting the channel, or whether you come here and you train at the studio, or you take maybe advantage of some of the online stuff that will be coming out very soon. I'm sorry that it can't come out faster, but it's just me here. But I'm trying to build a stronger community, maybe something that you may not get in a regular studio, or a gym that's in your area that you might be going to, you know and like I said, stronger people are the ones who have the courage to ask for help when they need it, and the compassion to be there for someone else when they need it. So, you know when you see someone, don't just automatically assume. People had quite a few people tell me, "Oh, pat me on the back and say, oh, you're strong, you can handle it." Never just assume that, because you never know what could be going on behind someone's smile. And I don't always know how to fake it too well. And some of my members will tell you that when they come through here. Sometimes I have a shitty mood when I come through, and I try not to have the shitty mood, but life happens, and I try to handle it the best way possible. But yeah, don't forget to reach out. So I want to, this week I want to leave you with a challenge, if I can. And that challenge again is to reach out to someone, give them a call, check in on them, text them, invite them to grab a cup of coffee, like I said, or a meal, you know. and or go for a walk if finances are not there. Who knows? It doesn't always have to cost money. It doesn't have to cost any money to send someone a text and just to check on them, and tell them that you've been thinking about them, because like I said, you never know what could be behind that smile, or the pain that can be going on behind someone, or what they can be going through, or the challenges that they may be struggling with, and I'm here to let you know that you don't have to suffer in silence if it's even you that might be going through something in your life, because I realized that myself this weekend, that I don't have to be a lone wolf, and that I don't have to go through this by myself, and I don't have to suffer in silence, and I just have to have the courage enough to be vulnerable, to reach out and tell someone, you know what, I'm not okay, and that I just need someone to talk to, you know and that will be your challenge for this week. If you can just reach out to someone and check in on them, you know and so if this message has touched you in any kind of way, and I hope that it has. I really do, because it's hard sometimes for me to share like personal things that I'm going through, especially when I'm actively going through it. It's kind of hard to share, especially on social media. I'm always a little bit reluctant to open up, but I just believe that if I open up and share maybe a little bit of my story, that it might be able to help someone else as well. And I hope that it was able, my sharing, what I'm going through, might be able to help you. And if you're not yourself going through something, then maybe you can share this video with someone that that might be going through something, and it might be an encouraging word for them. So that being said, don't forget to like the video and share it, ring the, set that bell, so that, you can get reminders of when I go live and when the videos are posted, and help me to grow this community, so that I can continue to bring you encouraging words, inspiring words, good information that can help us all. So I just want to take a minute to open up the floor if anyone has any comments. And again, even if you have comments, drop those, leave me a comment of someone that has done something for you. Or maybe, like I said, you can leave a comment of someone that you're going to help. I would love to check the comments and read those stories. So, don't be afraid to drop something down in the comment area. I'm gonna scroll back a bit and see who we got here. And always forget to bring my glasses. And I always have problem. Not only do I have a problem when I forget where's my glasses at? Hold on for 1 minute. Let me go get my glasses. Between my glasses and me reading screen names, I can't stand reading screen names. Where's my glasses? Here we go. Righty. Let's see who we have here. Alrighty, Gamers Paradise. How am I? I'm doing better. Okay, I'm not totally, 100, but I'm doing better. And thanks to the people the members that I have here in my studio, that they became definitely more than members to me. And so I am doing better, and I'm working every day to feel even more better. And I'm trying to work my way out of my situation. And, each day, I know how to do my hustle. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to get my hustle together so that I don't get my ass tossed out of my place. So, it's a little bit tough financially, but, we all go through our hardships in life. And if I've learned anything in my life, is that what you have been through in the past in your life has taught you everything that you need, and taught you and prepared you for everything that you are going through and about to go through in life itself. That's what life has taught me in my 55 years of living. So everything that I've gone through, sometimes you will go through things in life and you're like, why me? Why me? Why me? Because life is trying to toughen you up for something that's ahead of the road. You may not be able to see it yet, but life is trying to toughen you up so that you be prepared when the thing that you can't see up ahead comes about. You can draw on your experience from behind and say, oh, this shit is hard, but I know that I can make it through because I've been through something, hard before. And so I'm prepared. So how am I? I'm doing better, and I am going to be better every day because I'm learning how to be a little bit more vulnerable. and learning that I don't have to do it by myself. And it's, I think a lesson that all of us can learn, especially since, like I said, we're in this world where we tend to be a little bit more isolated in the world. Alrighty, let's see what else we have here. Am I visible? Yes, you are. I just wasn't reading everything while I was trying to go over the topic. I am trying to become a little bit more relaxed in front of the camera, and I hope I was a little bit more better today than I was last week. I was sometimes I don't know. I've been on the camera before, but some days I'm a little bit more nervous than others when I'm trying to deliver a topic, and I really, 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 really want to. Make sure that the delivery is well and that I go through all the points that I want to cover without forgetting it. And so in the midst of that, I get kind of nervous and it comes out in my behavior. Alrighty. Hello from America. Tagaloo, thank you. What part of America are you from? I'm from New York City. Let's see here. Gorgeous Muscle Queen. Let's see. Music Man. Oh, thank you, Music Man, for coming and stopping by. Tagaloo thinks I'm beautiful. Well, thank you. I think you are beautiful as well. I can't see your picture, but I think you have a beautiful soul. How about that? Yes. I like to think that I'm still a champion in many ways. I don't compete on the stage anymore, but I try to live my life as a champion still. I tell my people in my studio, I don't train chumps. I only train champions. So, yes. Let's see here. Who else do we have? Shrikapia. Let me see. I love how still muscular to this day. Yes, I'm still kind of muscular. I'm not contest ready. I'm not on the contest stage anymore, but I still hold my muscularity quite a bit. And I'm working every day, to bring I got a few more kilos to drop down before I'm at the weight that I want to be at. I'm about 84 kilos right now. I've been plateauing at that weight at the moment. So I want to get down to about 70, I don't know, 75, 76 kilos, which is about 100 and I want to say 78 pounds, around 178 pounds in weight. So I'm about, yeah, I'm a little over that. So I need to come down. I want to say probably about maybe about 15 more pounds I need to come down. 15 close to 20 pounds I would like to drop. Not so much just for the looks, although I do like being lean, but more for the health of my knees. Because when I'm lighter, then my knees feel a lot better and I could do a lot more stuff without feeling my knees lock up. Alrighty, let's see here. Would like to see you flex on stream. Well, I'm not going to flex here. And if I do flex on stream, it will be someplace where I can get the cha-ching because I don't flex for free. So if you want to make a donation, you can always make a donation or you can always do a cam call and I can do that for you there. But I'm not going to, that's not what this platform is going to be for. Again, BBT Global TV, I want to come to you with encouraging, inspiring topics, tell you how I'm working through things in my life, events that are going on here in the studio, and making shout outs to my members, my members, that my valuable members that I love here, that have made so much progress. I have so many people here that started out lifting a little bit of weight, and now I got to buy more weights in the gym downstairs, the studio downstairs. I have to get more heavier weights because I have a couple of them come through the class and they take up all the weights, but I'm so very, very proud of them and their accomplishments and how they just continue to get stronger and stronger and stronger. Nobody's looking to be a bodybuilder, but everyone's looking to be the best body that they can create for themselves. So, if no one has any more questions, I like to try to keep these lives down or under an hour so that people will watch them. If you don't see it immediately, after this live ends, it's because I need to edit it. I'm trying to teach myself how to do these lives and how to edit them and how to do the thumbnail and how to do the title. All of this stuff I have to learn, and I'm teaching myself how to do this stuff properly so that I can continue to grow the channel. I'm hoping that it will become something really big that you will love to come to and take time out of your schedule to come and join and in on the conversation. So again, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to share. ring that bell so that you can always, get notification and set the algorithm for these videos, and so that the YouTube will push the videos into your feed. And also, again, drop down in the comment. Again, anyone that has helped you out in a tough time in your life, leave a story down there, and or leave me a story of someone that you plan on helping out this week. Remember, that's your challenge for this week, is to help at least one person. Not help, but at least contact, reach out to at least one person this week, and just text them or call them, somebody that you haven't heard from in a minute, that you haven't talked to in a while, and you're thinking like, wow, you know what? I haven't seen so and so in a while. Let me see how that person is doing. Do that. Because I'm telling you, for me, this weekend, thank you for those that reached out to me and checked in on me, because you brought me out of a dark place that I think that had I stayed there, like I said, I don't entertain unaliving myself, but health wise, it's not good to go into those dark places and to be stressed. The body responds in different ways. And you don't want to go down that dark path, because everything seems negative when you go down that path. So thank you very much for those members that reached out to me. I really, really, truly, truly, truly appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. And I will also make that effort to constantly nourish the friendship that I feel that I have with you. And so on that note, I love you. I want you to continue to be strong. I want you to make sure that you take care of your body, take care of your mind, and make sure that we take care of each other. Because remember, being stronger together, we're much more stronger together than we ever can be by ourselves. Alrighty, so I love you guys. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Until next Sunday at 7 p.m. Berlin time, you do the calculation where you are in the world. Again, drop down also where you're from, where you're watching from. I would love to know that as well. Alrighty, but until next Sunday, I love you, my Tiger Streaks. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Take care, guys.